Hey guys, Casual Rotmeg here. Wanted to make another video. Had an interesting thought experiment that I wanted to share with you guys. Which is, there are hundreds of mobs in Realm of the Mad God. Some have these complex shot patterns and multiple phases, and some like to sit on the beach with you while you wait for the realm to close and fight Oryx. But what if certain mobs in the game were actually good guys and they helped destroy Oryx, the Mad God of the realm, from Realm of the Mad God? There are many mobs that can stand a chance at defeating Oryx 3, but we're not really here to talk about them that are guaranteed to win. But what I'm here to talk about is, would a weaker mob stand the chance of taking O3 on for himself? Knowing that as long as a mob can deal damage over 10, they'll do at least 1 damage to an enemy with a higher defense than the damage. So the mob that I'm most interested in is the Armored Squirrel from the Forest Maze. He shoots in a V-like pattern, and his shot damage is about 20. It is 20, and that rounds up that number from 1 damage to 2 damage, so that would be doubling its DPS compared to their weaker companions like, the Forest Goblin Mage and the Mini Megamoth. And like I said, this Demon Blade type shot pattern is how it likes to get up and burst down their foes. In this case, Oryx. A lot of burst damage. In the scattered clearings of the Forest Maze, you can actually find the Armored Squirrel fighting for their territory when you walk up into the clearings of the maze. But however, upon leaving their territory, so like if you go into a clearing and then try to drag it out, the Armored Squirrel will stop chasing you, and it'll walk back to that clearing. Maybe they don't show any hatred towards you. Maybe they were only trying to defend, their part of the Forest Maze so that they can peaceably remain. Maybe the Armored Squirrel knows they can't defeat you, even a low-level player, turning away in cowardice and shame. Not only do we have doubt in the ability of the Armored Squirrel to succeed against O3, but maybe they do as well. And 2 damage, that's not a lot of damage. So how long will that take to beat O3? How far away are they from the clearing that they were raised in? That's a long distance. And with their DPS, it would probably take about, rough math, a full day of pure DPS in dodging to defeat him. So over 24 hours. And that's not even the beginning of the dungeon. What about Oryx 2? Oryx 1? The Stone Guardians? Janus? Okay, these are some big roadblocks that he's going to have to get across. And with their 130 HP bar, they can only tank 2 shots. And that is the unexalted weakened shots from Oryx and the wine glass that he throws at you in the beginning of the fight. That does 0 damage. So Oryx kind of letting the Armored Squirrel know that the only chance that he had was to turn back and head to the Forest Maze, to forever wander in their clearing, with the only action being to defend the Megamoth and their companions, lost in a sea of trees, but safely hidden from dangers outside of the forest. And why risk the danger for this? So he can brag to his friends, oh wow, I did it. I soloed the O3, check the sniffer, Is that the only purpose of this when it's all said and done? Is it really worth dying over? What would their friends say about them leaving? It's not really consistent with how they usually act. They usually stick to their side of the clearing and try to defend it from incoming players. What's with all this change? Why change everything? Why go out and face 03? And what makes us change the way we want to act? Is it an event that occurs in our lives? Is it out of boredom? Is it to have a better sense of self? There's something special about a person wanting to better themselves, but the ones who truly act upon that, to initiate that change, set themselves apart from the rest of us. And the scary part is how other people view us changing suddenly, right? So thinking that, you'll know how they react once something's changed about you. The perspective from others, they might see you as unstable, right? Since you're, prone to making change. People don't like it when their environment changes around them. They want consistency. Now that you've become this person changing, they might think, oh, what else is going to change about you that I might not like? And what even triggers this mindset? I thought this to myself when I started learning guitar again. When I got my guitar, I started learning how to play it by playing math rock. And for those who don't know what math rock is, it involves non-traditional time signatures, unorthodox rhythm strumming patterns, and a lot of finger tapping. And doing this as a way to learn the instrument, in a few weeks, it just felt like torture. I did not want to play guitar. It was not fun at all. And I put up a wall mount for it as a permanent decoration. And flash forward 3 years, and I wanted to pick it up again, to try to fight that stigma that I gave it, and consciously think about how I can actually relearn this in a more of an enjoyable way, rather than just starting off with hard mode. And I reattempted it via, these chord courses on YouTube, and which made it way, way, way easier. And I did have a blast playing it for the second time. I decided to pick it up again after wanting to create kind of shoegazy, dream pop type music. And my desire to create that music far outweighed the negative association that I had with the instrument when I was first learning it. And what that tells me is that in this situation, the desire to make a change was enough to break through the mindset of me hating guitar. I find it fascinating that the human mind can overcome these preconceived notions in order, to better themselves. And it really makes me consider past issues that I've had with certain ideas, and more so ask myself, what if I approached them differently? And you could even extend this to opinions that other people have had. Maybe a bad review of a movie was just enough to write off seeing it entirely. Or, maybe overwhelming studies and evidence show that using heroin recreationally can ruin your life. And, maybe that was enough for you to say, I probably won't try that. But jokes aside, it's funny how much we accept other people's opinions as our own version of that truth. Just to clarify, besides heroin, obviously don't do heroin. And blending the line even further, when does it stop being these little changes that we make about ourselves, and when does it become key personality traits about ourselves? And is it considered ethical to change our personality? And is that even possible? And we could sit here and worry all day about these external factors, but at the very root of this change that you're wanting to make, you gotta ask yourself, is this even possible? Am I even capable of making this change? If I can't get up out of bed to brush my teeth in the morning, how am I going to compete in the 2026 teeth brushing Olympics? The seed of doubt is such a powerful antagonist to making a change or getting, setting our goals and achieving our goals. And while these are more idealistic threats to go up against, the less flashy and more likely obstacles tend to be, laziness. While I was writing this script, I'm just going back and forth between sentences, writing sentences, and just being on my phone. And I'm willing to bet at least one person watching this is actually supposed to be doing something else rather than scrolling on YouTube or watching this video or however else you got to this video. Because there's no way you're subscribed, right? There's no way. Since our comforts are so close to our proximity, it feels criminally easy to put off our goals for, another day, a week, or even a lifetime. And this is even worse considering that most people are conscious to this weakness, but they do it anyways. And that's especially sad, even for me with my phone. The big three that I like to adhere to when conducting these changes is motivation, will, and consistency. To me, that's the cure to, laziness, as opposed to, other factors as well, but they will not only save you from the pitfalls of laziness and fear, but you'll get the momentum to come close, meet, or even exceed your goals. And notice that I said come close, because to me, that too is also a success, because that's meaning that you were trying to actually reach those goals, and trying is the first step to succeeding. Motivation is pretty easy to find. Really, it's just one question: is why did you want to change or meet your goals? And keeping that in your mind, I think is very powerful, and that can be enough a lot of the times. But finding that reason sometimes can be difficult if you weren't really consciously thinking about it beforehand. So let's say, for instance, why would an armored squirrel be so bold to seek out and defeat oryx? For how hard that is. This would have to be a pretty big reason to justify even doing this, even attempting it. Hypothetically, what if this speed sprout from the forest maze just stopped growing in the forest maze and started only growing in Oryx Sanctuary? There's no question that the armored squirrel would just have to go to O3, because that's a part of the forest creature diet, is the speed sprout. The second one, will, is more of a finite currency that everyone has, varying amounts of. Some people seem to have so much willpower and be able to do anything they set their mind to, and while others, even struggle to open their eyes in the morning. And even though will is a limited supply, I found that you can actually train yourself to increase your willpower by doing difficult tasks. You know, maybe, let's say, not go directly to O3, because that would be too tough for an armored squirrel, and maybe they need to ramp themselves up, but maybe starting off with something like the cultist hideout, right? It's an exalted dungeon. It's the easiest of the exalted dungeons. And maybe that would be the right amount of challenge that the armored squirrel can go through. Consistency might be the hardest thing on this list, depending on how you go about doing it. Doing something once or twice can be fine, even if it's hard, doing it once or twice, but making it a habit to do it every day, you know, for about, let's say, a month, can be significantly harder than, you know, gaining more willpower or getting the motivation for it. But once you reach that point, it really becomes incredibly easy to maintain it, and even not requiring will or motivation just because it's so ingrained into you. Namely, like, so once you've established to brush your teeth, you know, twice a day, you don't really have to think about doing it, you know. I think remembering the why for a task is a good way to keep building consistency. You know, keeping a logbook is another great way. But I'm not here to sell you a course on productivity or anything. People have goals to change themselves for the better, and some people have personality traits that they wish they no longer had. And even though these things would objectively make you better as a person, would they also fundamentally change who you are? You know, does it even matter defining who you are? You know, we feel the need to define ourselves because if we don't, it feels like we're lost, you know, in a maze, trying different paths, ending up on dead ends, you know, so on and so forth. And to the people that are lost in life and trying to figure out themselves, what I say is, instead of figuring out what makes you happy or who you want to be, just be conscious. Question yourself for what you're doing, why you're doing it. Ask yourself if living life the way that you're living is hurting or helping you. You know, don't shoot for happiness, just shoot for being more aware in your life. And maybe that sounds a bit cliche, and it's not really that glamorous of a life to live, but it really is effective. You know, sometimes what hurts us is outside of our awareness, and swiftly identifying what's hurting us is half the battle of solving it. And at that point, it then feels like a choice. You know, am I going to continue suffering this way, or am I going to find a way around it? You know, do I really need to change, or is there another reason in my life that I'm not satisfied with? These abstract ideas of being happy and having it all figured out, it just seems so trivial to chase, and half the time I don't even want the answers to my questions. You know, I just want to think about it more. You know, could you imagine how boring life would be if you knew exactly what you were supposed to do to be happy, or, you know, even have it all figured out? I just hope that I go the rest of my life not having the answers to anything, and act more conscious about the decisions that I make. Staying lost forever in my own forest, in a way. Finding the uniqueness in nature as I walk along the path.
We back. We back.